The guy moved millions worth of drugs, owned the famous white powder bear, and rejected one of the most beautiful women of all time. So who is this guy? Pablo Escobar? The real-life James Bond? Nope, we're talking about Waylon Jennings. Along with Willie Nelson, Waylon was the face of Outlaw Country that kinda changed music forever. Now, Waylon always said that he never was an outlaw, and that the whole thing was made up as a marketing term. But a history of trouble with the law says differently. And now we have some new information that may settle the question once and for all. So, was Waylon Jennings really an outlaw? Today we're uncovering the dangerous past of Waylon Jennings, the man with a past as deep and dark as his voice.
Locked up in a little rock, broke down to the bone.
So, how did he really earn his millions? Is the story about his famous arrest really true? The one from Don't You Think This Outlaw Bits done got out of hand? Or was there a mysterious betrayal? Well, the truth is finally coming out. Was Waylon Jennings really who people said he was? Well, there is only one way to find out. Before we dive in, please give this video a thumbs up to show your support, and subscribe to our channel for more country content like this. Now, I'm not sure Hank done it this way, but if you want the truth, you're gonna have to trust me, so let's go find out. What happened? A young outlaw. Years before he became the face of Outlaw Country, Waylon was just a kid in rural Texas. Was he secretly a goody two-shoes, or was he an outlaw from birth? Well, just like Merle Haggard, who defined the young criminal with Mama Tried, Waylon too liked to get into trouble. He was so bad that he was forced by the school superintendent to drop out. Although, for what, we're not exactly sure. Waylon said, quote, "They almost sent me to reform school when I was a kid, just for getting in meanness." Well, the life of a high school dropout wasn't exactly glamorous. Waylon worked odd jobs, driving a cement truck and picking up shifts at his dad's cheese factory. It's the kind of situation that drives many, like Merle, into a life of crime. But Waylon took a different path. Instead of law breaking, he chose to pursue music. And as he struggled up the ranks of the music biz, he stuck to the straight and narrow. Well, how then did he get a reputation as the face of Outlaw Country? Waylon, the outlaw. Many outlaws make their names in saloons, dark alleys, you know the deal. But where did Waylon get the label, and how true was it? Waylon, along with his pal Willie Nelson, had been struggling to establish themselves in an unforgiving music scene. Completely frustrated, they began bringing back older sounds like honky-tonk and cowboy ballads. Instead of the slick streets of Nashville, they took their inspiration from the dusty streets of Bakersville, as well as the saloons scattered across Texas. Of course, the Nashville establishment did not like this one bit. You mean artists having control over their own music and switching up the formula? Unacceptable. But Waylon, Willie, and their compadres had something up their sleeve. Outlaw Country didn't just stick it to the labels, it also sold those records. Willie would later say, quote, "For us, outlaw meant standing up for your rights, your own way of doing things. It felt like a different music, and outlaw was as good a description as any." Okay, quick. What was the first country album to go platinum? Nope, it's not Johnny Cash or Dolly Parton. It is the 1976 album Wanted, The Outlaws.
It's been rough and rocky traveling.
Now this was a compilation album with only 4 new songs, but it was the culmination of years of momentum. And boy, were listeners sick of glossy, poppy, quote-unquote country music that they jumped all over this gritty record. But there was a problem. People didn't just love outlaw music, they loved the idea of the outlaw too. They didn't just want their favorite stars to sing about drinking, robbing, and breaking the law. They wanted them to live that lifestyle. but Waylon wasn't exactly thrilled about his new image. There was a problem, you see. Waylon claimed he had no interest in actually being an outlaw. He said that the outlaw image was a self-fulfilling prophecy, a marketing term that, ironically, was causing trouble for those who wore it. But was Waylon actually telling the truth? Waylon the rock star. Waylon claimed that the outlaw movement was just a marketing term, but this wasn't exactly true. Waylon, alongside his buddies, did things a bit differently. They toured with a massive caravan, including 36 people, 3 buses, and 2 semis. His guitar roadie, nicknamed Beak, carried around a briefcase full of cash. He'd walk up to the hotel's front desk, say, "How much do I owe you?" and pull out a stack of hundreds. Another kind of big outlaw thing Waylon possessed was a huge mistrust of authority. One evening on tour, a friend of Willie's was hanging out with him outside of their motel before a gig. Waylon was standing outside, watching a local cop arresting an elderly town drunk. Waylon called his friend over and said he was making sure the old man wasn't mistreated. Now, Waylon's ways didn't just extend to legal businesses. One evening, Linda Ronstadt, you know Linda Ronstadt, in her prime, mind you, was at Waylon's show. Afterwards, she was out back, asking to see Waylon. And well, Waylon kinda just blew her off. I mean, wow, I cannot say that I would have done the same, but I respect it. I guess. Drug use. Waylon Jennings also famously had one huge law-breaking habit. The guy would dive into drugs like Scrooge McDuck would dive into a pile of gold coins. But how bad was it really? He started off doing pills, which he quit in 1977 after Elvis died. But then he got into amphetamines. For a while, he shared an apartment in Nashville with Johnny Cash. So yeah, the two both had serious drug problems. So they helped keep each other accountable and be totally clean. Nope, just kidding, they both did more and more. When one of them would go out of town, they would have to hide their stash so the other would not dig into it, completely cleaning it out. One time, Waylon went on tour, and Johnny was desperate for a fix, so he ransacked the apartment, searching for Waylon's stash like a treasure hunt. Having no luck, he went out to Waylon's sparkling new Cadillac. The glove box was locked, so he pried it open with a screwdriver, only to find it also empty. When Waylon came back, he understandably threw a fit. So Johnny responded, "Damn, Waylon, why did you lock it if there wasn't anything in it?" Next, Waylon moved on to the white stuff. You have to give him credit, anything he did it big. The guy spent $1,500 a day on the drug. I mean, that's today's equivalent of $12,000. He would later say, quote, "I'd put it in a straw and sniff it so hard it would shoot straight back into my brain." Of course, this would catch up to him in that famous incident, one unfortunate day in Nashville. But do you know the true story about Waylon's battle with the law? His famous arrest. There is one story about Waylon Jennings that most people have heard, how he fought the law and won. But how true is this famous fable? Well, it all started when somebody sent Willie an ounce of the white stuff, allegedly a gift, through a private delivery service. But somewhere along the way, a snitch opened it and told the DEA. So they set up a trap. They left a small amount inside and sent it to Waylon in Nashville. It was delivered to him at the studio where he was recording. So he opened it, put it back, and went on to recording. On cue, the DEA was on site, ready to bust him, but they got to the area outside the recording booth, which you couldn't see from the outside. The drummer was out there, and he hit the call button into the booth, which you couldn't see into. This gave Waylon enough time to stash the drugs in a corner of the room. When the officers entered, he calmly pointed out that there was an error on their warrant. And it worked. They rushed away and came back with a corrected one as soon as they could. So what did they see when they got back? Waylon Jennings walking out of the bathroom, a loud flushing noise coming from within. Waylon calmly said to the DEA agent, quote, "If it ever was here, it ain't here no more." Honestly, I wonder if he rehearsed that into the mirror beforehand, because it's just perfect. The cops still arrested him, but the case was dead in the water because of that bad warrant. Just leave it to the media to still pick up the story and run with it, because it supported the image of Waylon Jennings as an outlaw. Of course, Waylon turned that famous incident into his classic song, "Don't You Think This Outlaw Bit's Done Got Out of Hand."
For law and order, the way that it should be.
Well, that's how the story goes anyway, but is there a bit more to it? Another side of the story. The feds, enraged by their missed opportunity to bust a huge celebrity, refused to walk away empty. Enter Neil Reshin. Neil was something of an oddball. He wasn't a lawyer or an accountant, but he had smoothed his way into doing taxes for a bunch of superstar musicians, including Miles Davis, Frank Zappa, and the Velvet Underground. When Waylon and Willie had fought for artistic freedom, it was Neil who had helped negotiate their contracts. Willie actually called him the outlaw lawyer, and the feds saw Neil as an easy target. So they brought charges against his assistant, Mark Rothbaum. Neil was going through a nasty divorce, and Waylon wondered if his soon-to-be ex-wife had tipped off the feds. Willie was also suspicious of the whole thing. And so Waylon and Willie ended up breaking off their relationships with Neil, and eventually ended up in a legal battle over money. What else? The White Powder Bear. You know, the recent 2023 popcorn flick about this white powder bear wasn't exactly a documentary. The story about a bear that eats a bunch of white stuff dumped in the woods, goes crazy, and then eats a bunch of people. Now that was made up, but you might know it was inspired by a very real bear. But did you know that Waylon played a small but vital role in that strange tale? In 1985, a very unlucky drug smuggler jumped out of a small plane while flying over Knoxville. Why was he so unlucky? Well, he got wrapped up in his parachute and fell to his death. On him was a bulletproof vest, which did not protect him against the ground. 2 pistols, night vision goggles, and a duffel bag full of 40 kilos, worth $15 million. All of it tumbling into the Chattahoochee National Forest in Georgia, where it just so happened to be found by a giant black bear. Kinda just as unlucky as that guy who fell to his death, because that bear decided to eat the contents of the bags. And instead of turning into a killing machine for the big screen, that bear sadly died. It turns out that drugs are as bad for bears as they are for dudes. So stay in school, kids. Well, that poor hyper bear ended up being stuffed and was put into the visitors center at the Chattahoochee River National Recreation Area. But the story gets weirder. During a forest fire, the park rangers evacuated all of the buildings. They put the bear into a storage facility. But when they returned a month later, the bear was gone. Nobody knows who took the bear or where it went, but it eventually ended up in a pawn shop, where it was purchased by none other than Waylon Jennings. And no, it wasn't to get all that good white stuff from the bear's belly. The guy wasn't that much of an addict. And if you're wondering what happened to the bear, well, it ended up as a display piece in his traditional Chinese medicine shop. Now it's a mascot for the ad campaign Kentucky for Kentucky. Not a bad life for a bear. But also, R.I.P. Bear, drugs can kill. Waylon Jennings, one of the kings of outlaw country, sadly passed away in 2002 at the age of 64. It's far too young of an age to go, but at least we can say that Waylon packed in a whole lot of life in those 6.5 decades.
In our music, that's why we never saw.
Besides revolutionizing country music, he toured with Buddy Holly, was best friends with Muhammad Ali, and even starred on Sesame Street, singing that memorable duet with Big Bird. He's kind of like the Forrest Gump of country music. Whether or not he was a genuine outlaw, I mean, that's up to you. But whether or not he was a legend, well, there's no question about that. Alright, that's enough of me. Now we need to hear from you, the fans. What was your favorite song by Waylon Jennings? Do you think he really was an outlaw? Or did he just use the image as a marketing tool? Please get in the comments and tell us all your memories about Waylon Jennings. Have any of you actually seen him perform live? What was it like? We look forward to reading your thoughts. If you enjoyed our video today, please give it a thumbs up to show your support. Subscribe to our channel and come back often so we can keep telling you what happened.